Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, ETNA's special initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of the micro, small and medium enterprise sector. It is our effort on this series of the Leaders of Tomorrow to bring you the most expert voices and the biggest voices from the MSME space to help you grow your business. And I caught up with the Chairman and Managing Director of SIDBI, Dr. Kshatrapati Shivaji, earlier. Here's part one of that special conversation. Dr. Shivaji, thank you very much for speaking with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. It's such a pleasure to speak to you, sir. Let me kick this interview off by asking you to help our viewers understand what the differentiation is really between technology-oriented startups as well as more traditional MSMEs.
Let me thank you for asking this very important question. Startups are basically two types. One, that the startup activities which any entrepreneurs undertake in the traditional conventional business practices, like any opening of any new kirana shops or any engineering shops, which are otherwise also not having much of the innovation quotient inbuilt in that. It is not knowledge led, IP centric type of the business model. What is required that here it is a traditional business activity which is being undertaken, then will have the requirement of the traditional funding, like the capital structuring basically get governed by the typical debt equity ratio related stuff. There the equity margin comes from their promoters quota, their contribution from friends and families and their own savings, etc. Whereas the other type of the startup, which primarily the India is now becoming the startup nation, which is basically having a number of, the intensive knowledge centric activities, novelty features inbuilt in that innovations, innovation quotient, which govern and drive in terms of its potential. As a result, this type of the startup model which is coming, which has the huge potential to disrupt the existing traditional business practices and the entire market setups. This type of the startup, which is having more on the technology driven, technology centric activities, have lot of growth potential, which typically thrives on the business model which are strategic in natures, having a lot of its own potential, so that they can be able to achieve the capital appreciation, huge valuation growth, that type of things. So let me repeat the two types of the startups. One, which are all innovation quotient, innovation centric, knowledge led type of, where the capital appreciation is the mantra, whereas the normal traditional, which basically is starting in the traditional plain vanilla type of the business practice.
Okay, so that said, and before I come specifically to what some of the schemes that you have for MSMEs and SMEs, I want to talk from a market perspective. What advice would you have for our viewers when it comes to accessing funds and making themselves more ready for such funding?
These two different categories of the startups are there. So for the traditional business model, what we have started, like the Make in India schemes, we have another very important schemes called Smile scheme. The SIDBI has started. Here, under the Smile and Make in India scheme, which is typically to boost the manufacturing growth in this country through the SMEs, the powers and SMEs networks across the country. It helps to generate support and create a financial muscle to all the SME entrepreneurs. How? We provide the debt resources at very competitive, in fact they much lower than the market level debt capitals, which helps these entrepreneurs to concentrate more on their intrinsic strength of the business practices. Second type of things, where the startup which is innovation led, there typically the requirements are, first it is a startup life cycles which starts from, first it is incubation centers. The incubation centers, first their idea to the business, especially nowadays our youths, the young aspirational youths, after even from the leading technology and the busy school, they come out, they have a lot of business ideas. They don't want to get into the job and then they get into the traditional security related pursuits. They intend to have their own entrepreneur's journey. When they embark on this type of journey led by bubbling enthusiasm to generate more and more type of the new age companies, there they get into the business to test it, the prototype in the incubation centers. Then the funding requirements are just after that through the angels. These angels funding takes place thereafter. The seed focused venture funds, early stage focused venture funds means basically the long term risk capital funding requirements which is required for this type of the startup which obviously going ahead to disrupt the market. This funding to take care of, like typically in our country, we have very less number of the domestic VC. VC means venture capitals. In order to augment the numbers and also the availability of the long term risk capital in this country, we have set up a unique fund of funds operation. First fund of fund operations we started called the India Aspiration Fund, which started last year.
Which is about 1100 odd crores?
It is total 2000 crore of the corpus.
Sure.
By now, we have been able to fund 39 VCs. VC means venture capital funds. In turn, the unique architecture which we have put in for funding this type of the large number of the innovation centric startups, which they need large amount of the timely and adequate funding at affordable cost, affordable prices. These 39 VCs in turn will start funding to the different startup units. The beauty of this unique architecture is that we fund to the corpus of the VCs typically from 15% maximum up to 25% of the corpus amount. So remaining 85 to 75% of the corpus fund, these VCs they generate, catalyze from the market and other investors, and then they start funding it to the startup units.
Okay, fair enough. The government has also announced, of course, the 10,000 crore Startup India Fund. Could you please help our viewers understand how they go about accessing those funds, what they need to do, how they need to apply, what the policy is?
I think this is again extension of what I was talking about earlier. The government under the Startup Action Plan announced by the Honorable Prime Minister on January 16 of this year, 10,000 crore of the fund of funds operation has been announced. Out of 10,000 crore, 2,500 crore every year is expected to be given for 4 years. Out of 2,500 crore, the first year, 500 crore has already come. 600 crore additional has also been put in the budget provision. For the viewers to access this type of support, especially the venture funds, by now 79 venture funds have been funded by SIDBI, including by the current fund of funds operations, by the government supports, India Aspiration Funds, and earlier the risk capital fund of the SIDBI. All the viewers can access to any of these the venture funds for getting the risk capital and the venture funding straight away. The second way they can be able to get it through the startup portal. The SIDBI has set up a startup Mitra portal, www.startupmitra.in. There, not only the funding for all these startup related supports, including incubators, each location wise has been mapped. Also for the angel funding, mentors, other supports, and also including for support for going further for the growth stage through the PE, private equity supports. All these things put together, it gives a single window portal based supports to all the viewers. In addition, typically when this type of the entrepreneur journeys, if any entrepreneurs embark upon, then there is a need for different types of the financial and non-financial supports. Many times when entrepreneurs, when they grow, the growth potential is very high. As I mentioned to you earlier, innovation centric startups, they always thrive on more on the capital appreciations. It is the valuation which goes up, not by like in the typically on the debt funding on the traditional business model, where the interest outgo and interest return, the income generated is the main focus. Whereas here, how the capital appreciation and growth which is taking place, that is what it is the real gain. In order to tap and retain that potential to the promoter and the founder, after the angel funding and some cases the first stage of the funding, they need to retain their equity percentage in the model. They need fund. So if they divest further, I mean they again access more and more equity, risk capital, then their equity get diluted. The next point I will tell you, there are our entrepreneurs who are having interest in particular sectors. The fund of fund operations which the government has given the support and the India is present fund is sector agonistic. Whereas we have one funds which we have started exclusively dedicated for the agriculture and the rural oriented startups. It's called Aspire Fund. 60 crore is the corpus which we have already launched it. There, if any of our entrepreneurs interested to go ahead for the funding needs for their startup model centered around in these sectors of agriculture and the rural oriented areas, then they will be able to access out of this 60 crore funding. There are typical venture funds who specializes in these sectors. I will suggest my all the SME entrepreneurs friends, startup entrepreneurs friends, that try to make use of this type of available resources and the different network of the venture funds which SIDBI has been able to generate, and we are committed to strengthen this type of the financial muscles and the network of the venture funds in the domestic market by domestic VCs.
Let's take a very quick break on this episode of MSME Dialogues on the Leaders of Tomorrow, but don't go anywhere. We'll continue this interview with SIDBI. Welcome back. You're with us here on MSME Dialogues on the Leaders of Tomorrow, and I'm continuing a conversation with Dr. Kshatrapati Shivaji, the Chairman and Managing Director of SIDBI. Take a listen. Talk to us some of the the tax benefits which are available to MSMEs.
That's true. This is one of the important path-breaking announcement which the Honorable Prime Minister in the Startup Action Plan has already given. The typical issues which our entrepreneurs, founders, they face in the startup side, I mean the innovation-centric startup side, that they thrive more on the capital gains, the capital growth, appreciations. There, if the capital gain tax, if it is exempted, then it will work in too much in favor of our friends, and there will be inclinations to go for more and more innovation-centric startup business activities, which is the need for our country, because we need roughly 1 million job every month, and we can be able to generate and leverage the favorable demographic dividend of the country. So, in order to support, promote and complement this type of efforts, the tax related incentives have also been announced in the Startup Action Plan on the January 16 of this year.
So, could you comment on reports which are suggesting that industry credit to MSMEs is slowing down?
It is not that slowing down, especially on the SME, but it's true that because of the various factors like globally not that conducive, supportive and encouraging environment, which in the complete western global hemisphere, we have certain issues which is going on with one after the another. The crisis, if I can say that economic crisis or economic turmoil which is hitting one after another and is going on, we don't know how long it will continue. The SME friend, obviously as a part of the entire global and interdependent the globe, naturally they are getting affected. The second thing that I can tell you that especially the micro entrepreneurs, SIDBI pioneer the microfinance the concepts. The micro entrepreneurs last year, through the vehicle of the microfinance institutions, we provide support, mentoring, financial contribution and all that, roughly 60 to 80% growth in the credit of the micro entrepreneurs has taken place through the MFIs, which is, I will say, very good sign, because the MFI typically works in bridging the gap, bringing out more and more inclusive growth trajectory in this country. And in that context, the contribution of the MFIs are unparalleled at the moment. And I'm happy to tell you and tell my viewers that the 10 NBFC MFI who have got the banking license from the Reserve Bank, 9 of them are supported, promoted and collaborated by SIDBI.
I want to just take that point forward. You were talking about the global environment, which is impacting to some extent credit to MSMEs, but the NPA situation which the industry as a whole has been facing, how much of that has been felt by the MSME space? Have they been worse impacted than some of the larger peers?
See, let me give you my perspective. In general, especially if I can say that the micro entrepreneurs, many of them are very honest repayer. They borrow and they repay in time. So the NPA percentage in typically you can see the MFIs, microfinance institutions related lending operations, are even less than 1%. They are so truthful and genuinely interested to utilize the borrowed funds and repay at the earliest, definitely in time. Only in some cases where the things go far beyond their capabilities, then only they are not in a position to. In general, SMEs, they try their best to repay in time, and that is the strength of the SMEs.
Okay, fair enough. I want to talk to you about financial education. A lot of the entrepreneurs ask us, how do we go about, there are so many different schemes, there's so much of education which we should be aware of, so many things we should be aware of, but there is no one-stop sort of platform in that sense. How do MSMEs go about acquiring such financial education?
I think you are asking about two things. One is that the awareness about the availability of the different government supporting schemes, which include subsidy finances supports and other things, and also many more related to the ease index, means ease of doing business activities related things. As a part of the drive of the ease of doing business in the country, even many of the state governments have set up the single window clearance platform. Like typically in Maharashtra, where I have worked earlier, we have set up Maha-EBs. Maha-EB is a platform where you will be able to get good number of the clearances, approval and the supports etc. from the different government departments and agencies at one place. Second is the financial education, because many times the financial management related and latest tricks and technique, if you don't know, naturally it has a cost. So the inefficient use of your financial resources will entail you either higher cost or you will have to bear higher obviously the prices. So in order to avoid that type of things, there are a number of such agencies across the country who typically give you the each sector specific, each product, financial product specific related guidance, training and awareness, which we have mapped through the standupmitra.in portal. Our viewers, our SME entrepreneurs can be able to access and get the benefits. In addition, the SIDBI obviously partner with large number of this type of the training institutions. Also, many places we have put our own knowledge partners. Means typically the retired bank employees and all, we have engaged them, and then they provide the guidance, support, awareness creations, and this type of hand holdings, the assistance to our entrepreneurs. They are able to utilize the benefits.
With that, it's a wrap on part 1 of this special interview with the Chairman and Managing Director of SIDBI. We will continue this conversation tomorrow, however, talking all things finance for the MSME space. You can reach out to us on leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. You can reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT or call us on that number on your screen. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.